Today, we're diving into the incredible story of Nobel laureate Wangari Maathai. Now, she saw something that so many leaders miss, this deep, unbreakable connection between healing our planet and healing our society. It's a powerful idea that, believe it or not, all starts with just planting a tree.
Yeah, this image really gets to the heart of her life's work. See, she's not just looking at a fallen tree. She's seen a symptom of a much bigger problem, this disconnect we have with the very environment that keeps us alive. She just knew, deep down, that when the land suffers, communities suffer right along with it. And she spent her life trying to fix that relationship.
All right, so to really get what she did, we first have to understand the problem she was staring down. Let's take a look at the crisis that was unfolding for rural communities back in Kenya.
So this is the world she grew up in. Just imagine it, lush, green, full of life. But that pristine world didn't last. In just a couple of decades, it all changed, and the consequences for the people who lived there were just devastating. Okay, so what you're seeing here is a kind of domino effect. It all started back in the colonial era, when huge areas of native forests were cleared out to make way for commercial trees, like pine and eucalyptus. Well, that completely wiped out the local biodiversity, but it didn't stop there. These new forests, they just couldn't hold water the same way the old ones did. So the rains would just run off, the rivers started to dry up, and even the rainfall patterns began to change. And all of a sudden, these communities were facing a massive crisis for the most basic things in life: clean water, enough food, and even firewood.
So facing this huge, tangled problem, Wangari Maathai came up with a brilliantly simple way to explain her solution. She called it the three-legged stool.
She used this really powerful African metaphor to explain that a healthy society, well, it's just like a stool. It has to be balanced. It can't possibly stand on just one or two legs. For her, the environment, good governance, and peace were all tied together. So these are the three legs, and it's so important to see how they connect. The first one is managing your resources sustainably, using what you have wisely and making sure it's fair for everyone. The second is good governance. You need leaders who are accountable and who respect human rights. And the third leg is peace, because, as she saw firsthand, so many conflicts are fought over things like water and land. You just can't have one of these without the other two. And this is the final piece of the puzzle. The goal, what we call development or progress, that's the basin sitting on top of the stool. But if you kick out any one of those legs, the whole thing just comes crashing down. The real takeaway here is that you can't just fix environmental problems by themselves. For any of it to last, you have to tackle the social and political issues at the very same time. Okay, so that's the philosophy, but how did she actually put it into practice? This is where the story gets really amazing, and we see how this simple idea grew into one of the most successful grassroots movements in history. And this quote, this really tells you about the first big hurdle. The very people who were suffering the most from all this, the rural women, they felt completely powerless. They thought, we can't fix this. We don't have the skills. And right here, this is her genius. At first, she brought in professional foresters, right? But their techniques were just way too complicated. So she changed her whole approach. She told the women, forget the complicated stuff. Use what you already know. Use your common sense. These women were farmers. They knew how to work the soil, how to tend to seeds. She just connected the dots for them. A tree seed is just like any other seed.
And just look at this. They started creating their own tree nurseries, sometimes just using old broken pots. They nurtured these tiny seedlings, and then they planted them. And pretty soon they were confident, they were competent. They became what she so wonderfully called foresters without diplomas. They were the experts their community needed all along.
And the result of this simple, common-sense action? Well, it was nothing short of a total transformation. It touched every single part of their lives. And of course, their land.
The ecological change was just staggering. You go from dust to shade from trees, from dry springs to actual flowing water. Birds and rabbits started coming back to the landscape. They weren't just planting trees, they were literally bringing an entire ecosystem back to life.
But here is the most crucial part. The impact went way beyond just the environment. On a personal level, the women could sell some of the seedlings, which gave them an income and this incredible sense of dignity and pride. Ecologically, the land healed, and then, politically, their success gave people the confidence to stand up and demand their rights, to protect their land from corrupt officials. It just shows how one simple action can ripple outwards and change everything. And maybe this was the biggest transformation of all, the change in mindset. These women realized that protecting their environment wasn't someone else's job, it was their responsibility. And even more than that,
It was their right. They had found their voice. They had found their power.
So as you can imagine, Wangari Maathai's work became a blueprint for change, not just in Kenya, but for the entire continent and really the whole world. Her legacy is this powerful message of action and hope.
This quote, it just says it all, doesn't it? A tree is so much more than just a tree. It's a symbol of a better future. It's an investment in a world that's going to be here long after we're gone. It is a true, profound act of hope.
And that kind of leaves us with a question to think about, right? Following her example, what small, real act of hope can each of us plant for the future? Because if Wangari Maathai showed us anything, it's that even the smallest seed of hope can grow into a forest of change.